Good morning, children. On Saturday, we have started a new chapter in Honeydew, and very successfully we have completed the first part of this chapter. It is a very interesting story, and it is a very long story which has been given in two parts in your syllabus. So, we have successfully started a great stone face part first. As the title of the story expresses that it is the story which is based on the lifelong experience of a little boy named Ernest, and it is also very interesting story written by Hawthorne, Nathaniel Hawthorne, and because the story is given in two parts, and in your syllabus we have prescribed part first only. Chapter number 8 is prescribed in your syllabus of UT third. Students, your UT third exam will start after 26th of January, and it depends on the conditions that what is the pandemic condition of COVID-19, whether your exam will held online or offline. As you know very well, this week you will get only online classes, and after completing the syllabus of UT third, we will start the revision work according to the instructions of our honorable principal sir. So in this reference, I am teaching you the last chapter of UT third, and it is also the final chapter of your second term exam. Very successfully, we have completed the first part of this chapter. As I explained you that it is the story of a little boy whose name was Ernest. He was living in the valley and in the cottage with his mother. As he was a little boy, his mother gave him very good character and good qualities. From their native valley and on the gate of their cottage, they can saw the huge mountain range, and in this mountain range there was a figure of a human face. As the title of the story shows, that it is the figure of human face, and from a certain distance, when you will see, you can see the human figure, and different type of figures one can see from a certain distance. So on the gate of at the gate of his cottage, he was always watching the great stone face which was appeared in the among the mountain range. Now a story was also going on. It was the prophecy among the people of the valley that one day a man will return in this native land, and that man will change the life of the people of the valley, and the face of this man will be similar to the great stone face. Ernest, when he was a little boy, when he heard about the prophecy from his mother, he hoped that he will be alive to see that man when such a great stone face like person will return in this native land. Now the time was going on. Now Ernest became a young man, and it was his daily routine that after doing his daily works, he sit down on the gate of his cottage and used to see the smiling face, the figure of the great stone face. It was his daily routine, and with the changing of time, Ernest became more and more mature. Now, as the time was going on, one day there was a rumor among the people of the valley that a person who was born on this valley and in his childhood this man has left the valley and went to the city. There such man passed his life in business and he became more and more rich. Now he was so rich that if that person will count his money, then he will take thousands of days to count the money, but he will never succeeded in counting the money. वो अब आदमी इतना अमीर हो गया था कि वो पूरी लाइफ में भी अब अपना पैसा नहीं गिन सकता था. अब जब वह अमीर हो गया तो अब उसे अपने वैली की, अपने गांव की याद आई. And such person decided to return in his native valley, in his native land. Now, there was a rumor among the people of the valley that such man, such a wealthy man, whose name was Mr. Gather Gold, now he was returning to the valley. अब वह गैदर गोल्ड जो है वो वैली को लौट रहा था. नाउ अ ह्यूज crowd was gathered to see the returning of Mr. Gathergold. So everyone was curious to see the face of Mr. Gathergold. After some time, a cart returned to the valley and it was drawn by horses, and there was sitting an old man with white hairs. He was Mr. Gathergold. But the face of Mr. Gathergold was not similar to the great stone face. So Ernest became disappointed and he returned to the gate of his valley, and from there he can see the smiling face of the great stone face. Now, stone face was seeming, and it seems like to tell Mr. Ernest that Mr. Gathergold was not such a person who was foretold in the prophecy. So, in this way, the first part of this chapter has been completed. Now, children, I am going to explain you the part second of this chapter, and I will try to complete the story in this video. So it is your duty that you have to open the page number 122, and I am going to explain the part second of the story. The years went on and Ernest grew to be a young man. अब काफ़ी समय बीत गया था. अर्नेस्ट अब एक यंग मैन हो गया. ही अट्रैक्टेड लिटिल नोटिस फ्रॉम द inhabitants of the valley. Mostly persons were not attracted towards him. They saw nothing remarkable in the way of life, except that the way of life of Ernest was not very attractive for the other people of the valley. When the labor of the day was over, जब दिन का पूरा काम अर्नेस्ट का खत्म हो जाता था, he still loved to gaze upon the great stone face. As I told you that it was the daily routine, it was the part of his daily routine that Ernest, after completing all the works of his day-to-day life, when he got the time, he was always sit on the gate of his cottage and to gaze to see the great stone face. Their idea was that this was a folly. But the people think about him that it was a folly. ये बहुत बड़ी गलती थी. But pardonable. But it was pardonable. लेकिन इसके लिए उसे माफ़ किया जा सकता था. It was pardonable. Because Ernest was industrious. क्योंकि अर्नेस्ट बहुत ही इंडस्ट्रियल, बहुत ही मेहनती था, काइंड, दयालु था, एंड नेवरली, और अपने पड़ोसियों के लिए बड़ा हेल्पफुल था. दे डिड नॉट नो that the great stone face had become a teacher to him. The people of the valley were unknown about this fact that for Ernest, the great stone face become a teacher, and that the sentiment which was expressed in it would enlarge the young man's heart. And the young man Ernest was very sentimental about this matter, that he always used to see the great stone face. So in this way, the life of Ernest became so laborious that it became the part of day-to-day life, that he always used to see the face of the great stone face very attentively. In this way, it was a teacher. The great stone face was working just like a teacher for him. So it was his daily routine that he used to tell him what was the reality. But people were unknown about this fact that this great stone face was a teacher for him. And the face of this stone face was playing a great role in the foundation of the character of Ernest. Now, so it was his daily routine that after doing his daily works, when he got the time, and it would enlarge, and the sentiment which was expressed in it would enlarge the young man's heart, and it was directly affecting his heart, his character, and fill it with deeper sympathies than other hearts. And it was the role of a teacher that it always was changing his feelings, and he was sympathized with all the other peoples of the valley, because this great stone face was working just like a teacher. They did not know that from this would come a better wisdom than could be learned from books. Now, it was not possible that people can learn such a good character from books, and so the great stone face was impressing the character of Ernest and it was changing and it was helping to found the a bell character of Ernest. And did Ernest know that the thoughts which came to him, और जो विचार अर्नेस्ट के मन में आ रहे थे, द थॉट्स विच वर केम टू हिम, इट वॉज वेरी हेल्पफुल इन द फाउंडेशन ऑफ हिज कैरेक्टर नेचुरली। अब वो सब जो कैरेक्टर्स थे अर्नेस्ट के कैरेक्टर में, जो क्वालिटीज आ रही थी, वो सब नेचुरली थी। एंड द ग्रेट स्टोन फेस was only just like a great stone face was only just like a guide in the field and at the fireside. In the fields and the fireside were of a higher tone than those which all men shared with him. A simple soul, simple as when his mother first told him the old story. And it was the moral story that his mother has been told him. He beheld the marvelous face looking down the valley and still wondered why its human likeness was not long so coming. वो हमेशा यही सोचता था कि ग्रेट स्टोन फेस जैसा मुझे इम्प्रेस कर रहा है, जैसा मुझे चेंज कर रहा है, जो जो पीपल यहाँ के जो और लोग हैं वैली के, उनको इतना प्रभावित क्यों नहीं कर रहा है। बाय दिस टाइम पुअर मिस्टर गैदर गोल्ड वॉज डेड एंड वरीड एंड द टाइम हैज़ बीन पास्ड। और जो मिस्टर गैदर गोल्ड थे वो इसी दौरान मर जाते हैं, एंड वरीड, उनको दफना दिया जाता है। हिज वेल्थ विच वॉज द बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट ऑफ हिज एग्जिस्टेंस, उसकी जो दौलत थी, जो उसकी बॉडी एंड स्पिरिट ऑफ हिज एग्जिस्टेंस हैड डिसअपियर्ड बिफोर हिज डेथ, वो उसके डेथ से पहले ही खत्म हो जाती है। सिंस द मेल्टिंग अवे ऑफ हिज गोल्ड, जो उसके पास गोल्ड था उसको मेल्ट कर दिया जाता है, पिघला दिया जाता है। इट हैड बीन जनरली एग्रीड दैट देयर वाज नो ग्रेट लाइकनेस एंड देयर वाज जनरली थिंकिंग ऑफ द पीपल दैट देयर वाज नो एनी ग्रेट लाइकनेस आफ्टर ऑल, उसमें कोई लाइकनेस, उसमें कोई ग्रेट चीज़ नहीं थी। Between the ruined merchant and the majestic face upon the mountain, there was no any similarity between the great stone face and the face of Mr. Gathergold. According to the people, there were no any matching. उनके बीच में कोई similarities नहीं थी. It so happened that another son of the valley had become a soldier many years before. Now, the second person, it was said that this person will be like the great stone face. Now he was returning. Son of the valley had become a soldier many years ago. लोगों के बीच में अब दूसरी कहावत आती है कि एक घाटी का ही, वैली का एक लड़का था जो बहुत समय पहले एक सोल्जर, एक सैनिक बन गया था। आफ्टर ए ग्रेट डील ऑफ हार्ड फाइटिंग, उसने कई युद्ध लड़े। He was now a famous commander. Now he was a famous commander. He was known to the battlefield by the name of Blood and Thunder. And he was famous in the battlefield by the name of the Blood and Thunder. उसको Blood and Thunder के नाम से जाना जाता था। Old and tired, अब वह बूढ़ा हो गया, थक गया युद्ध लड़ लड़ के। He had lately expressed a desire to return his native valley. Now this soldier, Mr. Blood and Thunder, who was a great commander, now he has decided to return his native valley. The inhabitants, his and old neighbors and their grown-up children. अब उस गांव के जो बच्चे थे, जो बुजुर्ग थे, जो सब वहाँ के रहने वाले थे, grown-up children, prepared to welcome the renowned commander. Now they all were preparing themselves to welcome the commander. It was being said, ये कहा जाता था, that at last the likeness of the great stone face had actually appeared. और अब जो है ग्रेट स्टोन फेस की तरह सिमिलर फेस जो है अब हमारे बीच आ रहा है। Appeared, great, therefore was the excitement throughout the valley. So it was the excitement among the people of the valley that such type of a person was now returning to the valley. So in this way, the people were very excited to welcome the great commander, Mr. Blood and Thunder, because they were hopeful that at last the prophecy about the great stone face will become true, and at last the great person was returning in the form of Mr. Blood and Thunder. So they were ready to welcome this great commander. Was the excitement throughout the valley, and many people who had never once thought ऑफ ग्लेंसिंग एट द ग्रेट स्टोन फेस, ऐसे ऐसे लोग जिन्होंने आज तक कभी ग्रेट स्टोन फेस की तरफ देखा भी नहीं था, नाउ स्पेंड मच टाइम इन गैजिंग एट इट. नाउ दे वर स्पेंडिंग देयर टाइम टू गैजिंग ऑन द ग्रेट स्टोन फेस, एट द ग्रेट स्टोन फेस. Once thought in glancing and great stone face, now spend much time in glancing of it, for the sake of knowing exactly how General Blood and Thunder looked. Because they were watching, they were gauging the face of the great stone face, because they want to match their its face with the great commander of Mr. Blood and Thunder. On the day of the general's arrival, up now the general was returning, the great general, the देश commander Mr. Blood and Thunder was returning to the valley. अब उसको बहुत दिन आ गया. Ernest and all the other people of the valley left their work. Ernest और उस घाटी के जितने लोग थे, गांव के सब लोग थे, सब ने अपना काम छोड़ दिया, and proceeded to the spot where a great banquet had been prepared. जहाँ एक बहुत बड़ी माला बनाई गई थी, बहुत बड़ा स्वागत समारोह हो रहा था. Soldiers stood on guard, and the soldiers were stood there as a guard. Flags waved and the crowd roared. झंडे लहरा रहे थे, बहुत भीड़ थी, and a large crowds were gathered there. Ernest was standing too far back to see Blood and Thunder's face. Ernest was also standing there to see the face of Mr. Blood and Thunder. However, he could hear several voices. Now, Ernest was waiting, and all the people of the valley were waiting about the arrival of Mr. Blood and Thunder. It is the same face exactly. क्या ये वही फेस है? Similar, like it will be similar to the great stone face, cried one man, dancing for joy. And the people started dancing in joy, because according to them it was the same face which was similar to the great stone face. Wonderly, that is a fact. Now people said that that is the fact, replied another, and this face was just like the great stone face. And why not? Cried the third. तीसरा कहता why not? क्यों नहीं? He is the greatest man of this or any other age, because Mr. Blood and Thunder was the greatest man of their age and the other age also, beyond a doubt. And this fact was beyond the doubt. ये सब लोगों से बिल्कुल अलग था. Ernest at last could see the general's face. At last Ernest आता है और वो जनरल का फेस देखता है, and in the same glance, and it was the same glance to see the sight, he could also see the great stone face. उसका फेस देखकर अब वो at once he compared the face of the great stone face with the face of the great commander Mr. Blood and Thunder. If there was such a likeness at the crowd proclaimed it, now he was thinking, he was matching both the faces, that if there was the similarity in the faces at the crowd was crying. Ernest could not recognize it, but Ernest could not recognize it. Fear not, Ernest. At once his heart said, fear not, Ernest, as if the great stone face was whispering to him. He was thinking in his heart, but it was just like for him that the great stone face was asking to him. He was feeling that the great stone face was saying to him, Fear not, Ernest, he will come. Ernest, डरो नहीं, वो दिन जरूर आएगा. When a person whose face will be similar like me, similar to the great stone face, one day such a person will surely return to the valley. Now, students, with this, part first of this story has been completed, and next term, if I will see that if it will be the part of your syllabus, then surely we will start the second part of this story. What will be the prophecy if it will become true that the great man whose face was similar to the great stone face, he will return to the valley or not. This is the whole suspense of the story, and very successfully we have completed this part of the story, and the complete PDF of the questions I will send you today after this video, and you have to write all the word meanings, all the true false questions, and the PDF question answers I will send you, and you have to write everything here. Now I am going to complete this story. Okay, students.